On June 12, 2018, a 3-story villa in the Ruijin Wenhua complex in Nanjing was successfully auctioned off for 8 million yuan after a day of bidding. Actually, this villa was estimated to be worth 12 million yuan in the local market, but due to a major defect, it was finally valued at 6 million, 50% of the market price. This major defect refers to a bizarre and twisted murder case that happened in here 7 years ago. The case spanned China and Japan, lasted 5 years, and has been recorded in China's major crime archives. To highlight the bizarre nature of the case, I've changed the narrative style a bit, so buckle up everyone. First, let's start with 3 short stories. One day in April 1999, a young lady, Li Ping, came to Mount Fuji along for a trip. Mount Fuji in April was breathtakingly beautiful, with snow-capped peaks and cherry blossoms at the foot of the mountain, incredibly romantic. In this beautiful scene, Li Ping met a man named Tanaka. Despite his Japanese surname, Tanaka was actually Chinese. Meeting a fellow countryman in a foreign land was naturally exciting, and Li Ping immediately struck up a conversation with Tanaka. It turned out that Tanaka was born in Henan province, China. After graduating from university, he came to Japan to make a living. With his business acumen, Tanaka did quite well in Japan. He had even married a Japanese woman of Chinese descent and acquired Japanese citizenship, settling down here. Hearing this, Li Ping also introduced herself. She told Tanaka that she was from Nanjing, single, and was vacationing at Mount Fuji. Although they felt a connection, they naturally went their separate ways after the trip ended. As days passed, this beautiful lady became a beautiful memory sealed in Tanaka's mind. At this point, Tanaka had no idea this connection with Li Ping was far from ending, and this woman would become someone who would change his life. A few months later, at a tree fair, Tanaka spotted a familiar figure. To his surprise, it was Li Ping. This unexpected reunion delighted both of them, and they chatted happily. After the connection, they got to know each other better. Tanaka told Li Ping that his first marriage didn't last long, and after the divorce, his child was given to his ex-wife. He then ventured into the Japanese health product market, establishing his own brand and company in just a few years. Li Ping also shared with Tanaka that she was born into a high-ranking official's family. In July 1996, she was admitted to a renowned Japanese beauty technology school, majoring in wellness and beauty, and began her life as an international student. This reunion brought them closer, and they started contacting each other frequently afterward. Soon, Tanaka began pursuing Li Ping passionately. Li Ping thought being with Tanaka could improve her quality of life, so she agreed. In January 2001, they got married. In March of the same year, Li Ping brought Tanaka back to her hometown in Nanjing, where they held a grand wedding. Less than a year after their marriage, they had a daughter. However, their life was far from peaceful and tranquil. Now let's forget about the Japanese couple and focus on Gansu province in China. On August 19, 2006, Ai Ming, a worker at the Gansu machinery factory, received a call from his older brother, Ai Cheng. On the phone, his brother said he urgently needed money for his business and was trying to raise investment funds. He hoped his younger brother could help him out and suggested meeting for a drink to discuss the details if convenient. Hearing that his brother needed help, Ai Ming agreed to meet without hesitation. Soon after, Ai Cheng drove to Ai Ming's home. The two found a small bar to sit down in. After a few drinks, Ai Cheng explained the purpose of the loan to his brother in detail, and Ai Ming immediately agreed. Just as they were in the middle of their chat, Ai Cheng suddenly received a phone call and his expression changed dramatically. It was his wife calling to say that their daughter, who had just returned to the country, was vomiting and had diarrhea. Hearing his baby daughter was so ill, Ai Cheng became extremely anxious and quickly said goodbye to head home. Then Ai Cheng set off for the airport. Half an hour later, a Sandana caught fire while driving on the Danla Expressway. The car lost control and the driver was burned to death and beyond recognition on the spot. When the police were handling the accident scene, they found a burned phone, a watch, and driver's license not far from the car. After verification, the owner of these items matched the car owner's information. It was exactly Ai Cheng, who had been rushing to the airport. The police then notified Ai Cheng's wife of his death and issued an accident report stating death caused by a single vehicle collision with a gauge reel resulting in fire. On Monday, February 28, 2011, taking advantage of the low number of visitors, two young boys headed to the famous Cuiping Mountain for a tour early in the morning. Cuiping Mountain is located in Jiangning District, Nanjing. and is named for its emerald screen-like appearance. Wang and Pan were making their way to the summit while admiring the beautiful scenery on the mountain. Around 12:40 p.m., as they were nearing the top, they suddenly noticed a plastic bag hanging on a tree branch by the roadside. Upon closer inspection, it seemed to contain something that looks like intestines. Huh? Did someone leave their meat purchase here? But what made them realize something was wrong was that next to the bag, there was also a jacket, a belt, and a pair of socks. Internal organs next to human clothing, the two couldn't help but suspect these were human remains, so they instantly called the police. Around 1 p.m., the police arrived at the scene. During the on-site investigation, they discovered that apart from the bag of organs hanging on the tree branch, there were actually more than 10 garbage bags containing human tissue not far away. That day, the police conducted an autopsy on these body parts, and the report showed the victim had died from craniocerebral injury caused by blunt force trauma to the head, and the body was dismembered after death. The time of death was about 2 days ago, meaning the victim was killed around February 26th. The police didn't find any items that could prove the victim's identity at the dumping site. However, in the remnant of clothing, the police discovered a train ticket from Gansu to Nanjing dated February 25th. The cop immediately contacted the Gansu authorities and, after several inquiries, found the person who purchased the ticket. The buyer said the ticket belonged to his brother, who had been traveling with him from Gansu but had since gone missing. So that's the end of the 3 stories. Seems like there are no connections between them. But what if I told you that the dismembered body in Cuiping Mountain and the charred body on the highway were the same person, and that person was Li Ping's husband, Tanaka? What do you think now? Let's shift our focus back to the Tanaka couple. Tanaka's Chinese name was Ai Cheng. As mentioned earlier, he was in the health products business in Japan, while his wife Li Ping studied beauty therapy and started a beauty business after graduation. On July 28, 2005, Li Ping and Tanaka opened Li Ping Beauty in Nanjing with Tanaka as the legal representative. They each invested $50,000, holding 50% of the shares. Tanaka served as the company's chairman, Li Ping as a director and general manager, and Li Ping's father, Jin Gong, as the director. In 2006, 5 years into their marriage, the Japanese economy took a downturn, so he gradually withdrew from the Japanese market. After discussing with Li Ping, they decided to move his business to China. Actually, Li Ping had already moved her beauty business to China before this, for reasons that weren't exactly honorable. It turned out that Tanaka and Li Ping's marriage wasn't great, and Li Ping had a lover in Nanjing named Tan. Moving the business to China made it easier for her to meet her lover, but Tanaka was completely unaware of this. After Tanaka prepared to return to China on the 2nd day after arriving, he rushed to Gansu to borrow money from a third brother, Ai Ming, which is where our second story began. However, when saying goodbye to his brother, Tanaka asked Ai Ming to drive his car back while he took a bus to the airport. But because he left in such a hurry, Tanaka accidentally left his phone, driver's license, and other items in his car. Therefore, the person who was burned to death on the Danla Expressway was actually his brother, Ai Ming, not him. When Tanaka arrived in Nanjing that night, he was still unaware of his brother's death. When he got home, his wife Li Ping was terrified to see him. He had received a call from the police in the afternoon, saying that Tanaka had died in a car accident. So how was the supposedly dead man now alive and back home? Tanaka was also bewildered by Li Ping's terror. After they talked, they realized there had been a huge mix-up. His brother had died in a car accident, and Tanaka himself had been mistaken for the deceased. By the time the couple had calmed down, it was already past midnight. Tanaka felt the most urgent thing was to call his family and explain the situation. However, at that moment, Li Ping suddenly thought of something. After their marriage, they had purchased large accidental death insurance policies from several Japanese insurance companies, with a total payout equivalent to over 10 million yuan. Since the police had already issued an accident report stating that her husband had died, why not take advantage of this to claim the huge insurance payout? This could also cover her investments in Nanjing. She quickly shared this idea with her husband, and Tanaka didn't hesitate to agree, nodding repeatedly. He thought this was a perfect opportunity that aligned all the stars and strongly supported his wife's idea. So the two agreed that Li Ping would announce Tanaka's death to the outside world, go to Gansu to handle his funeral arrangements, and cancel his household registration. Meanwhile, Tanaka would secretly hide in Shanxi province. Over the next 6 months, Li Ping collected insurance payouts from several Japanese insurance companies in 3 installments. Although the total claim was over 10 million yuan, the insurance company stated that the claim process lacked solid legal documents to confirm Tanaka's death, so in the end, they only paid out a little over 5 million yuan. Earlier, when the police wanted to do a DNA comparison to the charred body, Li Ping had immediately refused. So naturally, she couldn't prove a black and white legal document proving that the deceased was indeed her husband. Thus, he had to accept the 5 million yuan compensation. Tanaka, hiding in Shanxi, maintained sporadic contact with his wife. Later, he returned to his hometown in Henan to hide. But Tanaka was, after all, a living person who needed to survive, so he planned to develop his business. However, since his household registration had been cancelled, he couldn't register a company. In the end, he had to fake 2 ID cards and use aliases. It's not hard to imagine how frustrating it is for a living person to live like a rat in the gutter with no end in sight. Finally, after being a living dead for too long, Tanaka had enough. He really wanted to reunite with his family, and his temper was getting worse. What aggravated him even more was seeing in the newspaper that his father-in-law, Jin Gong, had become a famous entrepreneur in Nanjing, but he couldn't enjoy the resources this brought. That even made him even more dissatisfied. One night in June 2009, as Li Ping and her daughter were about to go outside, a man suddenly jumped out from the stairway, giving her a big fright. On closer look, it was her husband, Tanaka. Their 7-year-old daughter, seeing her father, cried and clung to her mother in fear. Actually, it wasn't just the daughter who felt repulsed by the Tanaka's appearance. Li Ping also felt a deep rejection. The reason was simple. She had a lover in Nanjing, Tan. In fact, during the years when Tanaka wasn't around, Li Ping and Tan had been openly together, and all their friends knew about it. So Tanaka's return was all harm and no good for Li Ping. But fortunately, at that time, Tan was away on a business trip and wouldn't be back for half a month, so Li Ping was still safe for now. But what would happen when Tan returned? Thinking about it, Li Ping fell into a great anxiety. Next, Tanaka moved in Li Ping's house, and Li Ping persuaded him not to go out. But their young daughter eventually let it slip. One day, when Li Ping took her daughter to visit her parents, the girl suddenly said she had seen her father. This made her grandfather, Jin Gong, suspicious. He immediately asked what was going on. Seeing that the truth couldn't be hidden anymore, Li Ping spilled the whole story. Now, in addition to Li Ping and Tanaka, Jin Gong also had to live in fear. Tanaka, having been away from family life for so long, desperately hoped that Li Ping could at least spend weekends with him. But Li Ping had no longer had any feelings for Tanaka, so she avoided any contact with him, even stayed at her company on weekends, often returning home late. This made Tanaka very unhappy. Li Ping deeply felt distressed by Tanaka's persistence. She felt that Tanaka was really in the way and wished she could find a way to get rid of him. After much thought, she came up with a clever plan to use some of the insurance payout to send Tanaka away. She consulted with her father Jin Gong, and he totally agreed. After all, he was now worth tens of millions, so what harm was there in his daughter using a few million to secure a peaceful life? So the next day at noon, after discussing with her father, Li Ping gave Tanaka a bank card with 3 million yuan, hoping he would continue to live under an assumed name, move far away, and start a new life. Seeing his wife wanted to get rid of him, Tanaka was furious. But he also realized his wife no longer had any feelings for him, and he was just an extra in this family. So despite being very angry, Tanaka had no choice but to take the money and leave. After being expelled, Tanaka completely lost his emotional anchor and started thinking about returning to Japan. However, his passport was still in Li Ping's possession. He had asked her for it several times, but she always refused, fearing that if he returned to Japan, the insurance fraud might be exposed and she would be implicated. This further worsened the relationship between the couple. After receiving 3 million yuan from Li Ping, Tanaka started traveling extensively. But even that much money couldn't withstand his extravagance, and he soon burned through the 3 million. When he ran out of money, he would go to Li Ping asking for more. One day in January 2011, Tanaka went to Li Ping for money again. Li Ping couldn't take it anymore, so she arranged to meet him at a quiet tea house. She told Tanaka that her beauty salon wasn't making much profit, and although her father had a large business, the company was currently facing cash flow problems, so they couldn't keep giving him money. Hearing that, Tanaka said he'd be fine without it, but he still insisted on reuniting their family of three, even demanding to go home with his wife. As they were arguing, Li Ping's lover, Tan, called. Tanaka, who was nearby, overheard Tan talking intimately with their daughter. Enraged, he immediately decided to reveal his identity to Tan and make him leave. During the argument, Tanaka grabbed Li Ping's phone and secretly noted down Tan's phone number. The next day, Tanaka contacted Tan and told him everything. Tan was shocked and tried to contact Li Ping for an explanation, but she didn't answer. Anxious, Tan rushed to Jingong's company and confronted him about what was going on. Seeing that another person now knew the secret, Jingong quickly called his daughter over. The father and daughter explained the whole story to Tan face to face. However, Li Ping didn't say Tanaka was her husband, but rather her ex-boyfriend. To their surprise, Tan showed no intention of spreading this information. Instead, he declared his unwavering love for Li Ping and swore he wouldn't break up with her over this. A month later, Tanaka realized things hadn't gone as he had hoped. Li Ping and Tan's relationship wasn't affected at all, and his own situation hadn't changed a bit. He became increasingly desperate. With nowhere else to turn, he decided to go back to his hometown and come clean to his brothers. During this time, Li Ping transferred another 700,000 yuan to Tanaka's account under the alias. In late February 2011, Tanaka returned to his hometown. His appearance shocked and delighted his family, and he explained the whole situation to them. His family also noted that Tanaka, having lived without an identity for several years, had developed some mental issues and would often become hysterical. His fourth brother, hearing about Tanaka's predicament, immediately offered to help, saying he had a distant relationship with Li Ping and could help persuade her family. That night, the fourth brother called Li Ping, saying he would accompany his brother back to Nanjing to see her and wanted to talk. But this call devastated Li Ping. She begged Tanaka's family on the phone not to bother her anymore. Hearing his wife say this, Tanaka became agitated, and they started arguing. Finally, he threatened that if Li Ping didn't let him return to Nanjing, he would expose everything about their insurance fraud and his fake death. After hanging up, Li Ping was in the worst mood possible. She hurriedly told her father and boyfriend about this, and all three had the same thought. How much better it would have been if Tanaka had really died in the fire. Once this idea took root, it couldn't be suppressed. Jingong and Li Ping figured if Tanaka really made everything public, their family would be completely ruined. So why not actually get rid of this troublesome man? Li Ping immediately agreed, thinking she couldn't have a good life as long as Tanaka was alive. Father and daughter were now determined to eliminate Tanaka. On the afternoon of February 25th, Jingong bought a kitchen knife, steel axe, garbage bags, and paper towels at a metro supermarket. Li Ping gave her father the key to her villa in the Ruijing Wenhua complex. Jingong hid the tools for the crime in the villa beforehand. On the morning of February 26th, Tanaka arrived in Nanjing. He stormed into Jingong's home in Ruijing, looking menacing with bloodshot eyes and a murderous aura. He had a fierce argument with Jingong and left after less than 10 minutes. After Tanaka left, Li Ping called her boyfriend Tan, saying Tanaka had come to bother her again. She asked Tan to find some people to help tie Tanaka up and hand him over to his parents, planning to send him to a mental hospital. After hearing this, Tan called a group of local thugs, asking him to help catch a mentally ill person, offering a generous reward. The group readily agreed. Around 6 p.m., Li Ping called Tanaka, asking him to come to her house that night to discuss things. After 7 p.m., Tanaka's brother, who had come with him, went to see Li Ping and talked for about an hour. Suddenly, Li Ping got a call saying there was an urgent matter at the beauty salon and left alone. More than an hour later, Li Ping returned and told her brother that she had met with Tanaka and everything was settled. So the brother left, but from then on, he could never reach Tanaka by phone again. Around 9 p.m., Jingong's car arrived for Tanaka. When the door opened, Li Ping was in the passenger seat with three strangers, the thugs, in the back. Tanaka was quickly overpowered by the three men and taken to the villa. The thugs then tied him up, blindfolded him, gagged him, and left him in the villa's garage before leaving. Soon after, Jingong arrived at the garage with tools. He struck Tanaka's head several times with the back of an axe and a kitchen knife, killing him on the spot. He then drove back to his home in Ruijing North Village. Meanwhile, the three thugs met up with Tan after finishing their job. Tan gave them 1,200 yuan, a few packs of cigarettes, and treated them to a meal, settling everything. Around 11 p.m. that night, Jin Gong and Li Ping switched to another car, went to the supermarket to buy black garbage bags, and returned to the crime scene. Jin Gong dismembered Tanaka's body in the garage hallway, then packed the body parts and clothes into the garbage bags and dumped them on Cuiping Mountain. Later, the third story unfolded. Two young people discovered the body parts on Cuiping Mountain and reported it to the police. The police found a train ticket from Gansu to Nanjing dated February 25, 2011, then located Tanaka's brother. After identifying the victim's head, the brother recognized it as Tanaka and revealed the whole story. The police immediately found Li Ping, and DNA test reports proved that Li Ping and her daughter's DNA matched the victims, confirming the deceased was indeed Tanaka. Subsequently, the police investigated Li Ping's villa and found traces of blood in the bathroom. The DNA matched that of the body parts. At the same time, police also found blood traces in Jin Gong's car, all belonging to the victim. Additionally, forensic reports show that 6 fingerprints found on the black plastic bags belonged to Li Ping's right hand. The plastic bags had a distinctive feel, unlike ordinary ones, suggesting they were imported products. This led the police to security footage from the Metro supermarket, showing an elderly man purchasing these bags, a steel axe, a kitchen knife, and a large amount of paper towels on the afternoon of February 25th. Around 1 a.m. on March 1st, 2011, police arrested Jin Gong. At 6 a.m., Li Ping and her boyfriend Tan were arrested at the check-in counter of Shanghai Pudong International Airport. On March 2nd, 2011, Jin Gong was criminally detained on suspicion of intentional homicide and arrested on April 7th of the same year. On May 2nd, 2014, the Nanjing Intermediate People's Court of Jiangsu Province approved the criminal verdict sentencing Jin Gong to death. In September 2016, the Jiangsu High Court issued a ruling committing Jin Gong's death sentence with reprieve to life imprisonment. Li Ping was later also sentenced to life imprisonment for intentional homicide, with lifelong deprivation of political rights. She began serving her sentence at Nanjing Women's Prison in June 2014. Due to good behavior, her sentence was reduced to a fixed term of 21 years and 11 months, with deprivation of political rights for 10 years. Additionally, Li Ping's boyfriend Tan was dealt with in a separate case and sentenced. The 3 thugs who assisted in kidnapping Tanaka were also all sentenced. Later, the villa was repeatedly auctioned, but no one took it. Finally, on June 12, 2018, the Qinhuai District Court in Nanjing publicly auctioned the villa, which was finally sold for 8 million yuan. We don't know who the buyer is or what they intend to do with it. Perhaps with new owners taking over, this shocking case will slowly sink into the archives and the dark cloud hanging over this beautiful villa will finally dissipate. Okay, that's all for this story. Hope you like it, and don't forget to give me a like and subscribe. See you next Saturday night. Bye bye.